In Bell Ridge, cruelty was currency for the privileged, none more so than a spoiled 13-year-old heir to a $330 million fortune, who saw the family's black maid as less than human, a servant to be mocked and broken for sport. Forced to crawl and bark like a dog for his amusement while his parents laughed, she was treated as invisible, her dignity stripped away. But beneath their contempt burned a fire that could not be broken. The next day, their entire world would be set ablaze. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Lena's arms ached as she carried the heavy silver serving tray loaded with roasted duck and seasonal vegetables into the Caldwell's expansive dining room. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany table, where 12 of Bell Ridge's wealthiest residents sat in their designer clothes, drinking expensive wine and laughing too loudly at their own jokes. She'd been on her feet for 14 hours straight, preparing and serving this elaborate dinner party. Her back hurt, and her new shoes pinched her toes, but Lena kept her face neutral, just as she'd learned to do over her years of service. Show no emotion. Stay invisible. Get through another day. More wine, Mother? Oliver Caldwell III's voice cut through the dinner chatter. The 13-year-old boy slouched in his chair, playing with his phone instead of eating. His perfectly pressed prep school uniform somehow still looked rumpled, just like his perpetually messy brown hair. Vivian Caldwell smiled indulgently at her son. "No, thank you, darling. But perhaps you could ask Lena to refresh everyone's water glasses?" Lena moved quietly around the table with the crystal pitcher, carefully refilling each glass. As she reached Oliver's place setting, he suddenly stuck his foot out. Lena stumbled but managed to catch herself, only spilling a few drops of water. "Oops," Oliver said with a smirk. Several guests tittered behind their napkins. "Oliver, darling, don't be naughty," Vivian said, but her tone was amused rather than scolding. Lena's cheeks burned as she continued her circuit around the table. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she caught a glimpse of Isaiah Carter, the new gardener, trimming roses in the fading evening light. He glanced up, and their eyes met briefly. Something in his steady gaze gave her strength. "I'm bored," Oliver announced loudly. "This dinner party needs some entertainment." He turned his phone toward Lena with a cruel gleam in his eye. "Hey, I know. Lena, come here." Lena's stomach tightened as she approached Oliver's chair. The boy's face held that familiar expression she'd grown to dread, the one that meant he'd thought of some new way to torment her. "Get down on your hands and knees," Oliver commanded. Lena froze. "I'm sorry." "You heard me. Down, like a dog." Oliver's grin widened. "I want to make a funny video for social media." "Oliver, I don't think—" Lena began quietly. "Do it," he interrupted. "Or I'll tell Daddy you broke that expensive vase last week." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You know what happens to servants who break things, don't you?" Lena's throat went dry. She did know. She'd seen 3 staff members fired in the past month alone, all for minor infractions that Oliver had reported to his father. "Now bark," Oliver ordered, holding up his phone to record. "Like a big dog, a really loud one." The dining room had gone silent. Lena could feel every eye on her, could see the anticipation on their faces. Vivian Caldwell sipped her wine, watching with detached amusement. No one spoke up. No one objected. With trembling hands, Lena lowered herself to the polished hardwood floor. The rough carpet beneath her palms scraped her skin. Shame burned through her entire body as she opened her mouth and forced out a weak "Woof!" "Louder," Oliver demanded, "and crawl around the table. Make it good." Tears pricked at Lena's eyes as she began crawling, each movement feeling like a knife in her dignity. The guests' laughter echoed off the high ceilings as she circled the table on her hands and knees, barking as commanded while Oliver filmed everything on his phone. "Oh, this is hilarious," one of the women exclaimed. "Oliver, you must send me that video." "Look at her face," another guest howled. "She really does look like a sad puppy." Through her humiliation, Lena caught another glimpse of Isaiah through the window. He had stopped his gardening and stood perfectly still, one hand in his pocket where she could see the outline of his own phone. His face was grim as he carefully angled himself to capture the scene without being obvious about it. "Keep going," Oliver commanded, zooming in with his camera. "Do another lap. And this time, shake your bottom like you've got a tail." More laughter erupted around the table. Lena's arms shook as she forced herself to continue crawling, each movement feeling like she was shedding another layer of her humanity. Her knee caught on the carpet, and she stumbled slightly. "Careful with our new pet," Vivian called out, causing fresh peals of laughter. "We wouldn't want her to hurt herself." Lena's vision blurred with unshed tears as she completed another circuit of the table. Her work uniform was getting dirty from the floor, and her knees ached from crawling. But worse than any physical discomfort was the crushing weight of degradation pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. "Now, beg for a treat," Oliver commanded, holding up a dinner roll. "Come on, sit up and beg like a good dog." The guests were practically crying with laughter now, some of them pulling out their own phones to record the spectacle. Lena could hear the clicks of camera shutters and see the flashes reflecting off the dining room's dark windows. Still on her hands and knees, Lena glanced up to see Isaiah had moved closer to the window. His jaw was clenched tight, and his free hand was balled into a fist at his side. But his phone remained steady, documenting every moment of her humiliation. Somehow, knowing that someone was witnessing this with sympathy rather than cruel amusement, gave her the strength to endure. "I said beg!" Oliver's voice cracked like a whip. Lena rose up on her knees, her hands held in front of her chest like paws, and let out another shaky bark. The dinner roll hit her in the face as Oliver threw it, causing a fresh explosion of laughter from the assembled guests. Lena sat on the cold stone steps behind the Caldwell mansion, her work uniform still dusty from crawling on the floor. The night air was chilly, but she barely noticed. Her whole body felt numb. The sound of continued laughter and clinking glasses drifted through the walls, making her stomach turn. She stared at her hands, red and scraped from the carpet. Tears fell silently onto her palms, but she didn't bother wiping them away. The crickets chirped in the carefully manicured gardens, their peaceful song a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind. Footsteps crunched on the gravel path. Lena quickly wiped her eyes with her sleeve, not wanting anyone to see her cry. But it was only Isaiah, approaching slowly with his hands visible, like someone trying not to startle a wounded animal. "Miss Goodson." His voice was gentle. "May I join you?" Lena nodded slightly, shifting over on the step to make room. Isaiah sat down carefully, keeping a respectful distance. For a long moment, they just sat in silence, watching fireflies dance among the rose bushes. "What they did to you in there," Isaiah finally said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "That was wrong. More than wrong. It was cruel and illegal." Lena let out a bitter laugh. "Illegal? Maybe. But what does that matter in Bell Ridge? The Caldwells own this town." "They may own the town," Isaiah said quietly, "but they don't own you. And they don't own the truth." He pulled his phone from his pocket, tapping the screen a few times before holding it out to her. "I recorded everything." Lena's hands trembled as she took the phone. The video was clear. Isaiah had captured the entire incident through the dining room windows. She could see herself crawling around the table, hear the cruel laughter, see Oliver's smug face as he filmed her humiliation. "I used to be a lawyer," Isaiah said softly, "before I Well, that's a story for another time. But I know the law. This is workplace harassment, discrimination, creation of a hostile work environment. With this evidence, we could what? Lena interrupted, her voice cracking. Go to the police? Sheriff Matthews plays golf with Mr. Caldwell every Sunday. File a complaint? The mayor's daughter is married to Mrs. Caldwell's brother. They'll bury it, just like they bury everything else. Isaiah leaned forward, his eyes intense. Then we go higher. State authorities, federal agencies, civil rights organizations, the media. This isn't just about one incident. It's about a pattern of abuse and corruption. And sometimes, all it takes is one spark to light the fire of change. Lena studied his face, searching for any sign of deception or false promise. But all she saw was sincerity and determination. Why do you want to help me? You barely know me. Because it's the right thing to do, Isaiah replied simply. And because I've spent too many years watching people like the Caldwells abuse their power while good people suffer in silence. Maybe it's time for that silence to end. He pulled a small notebook from his back pocket and began writing. First, we need to document everything. Dates, times, witnesses. Every incident of mistreatment, every inappropriate comment, every threat. We'll build a timeline, gather statements from other staff members who've been mistreated. For the first time since the incident, Lena felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. The kitchen staff, she said slowly. Maria and Carlos, they've seen things too. And Sarah, the previous maid, she was fired last month after Oliver claimed she stole his video games. But she didn't do it. I saw him hide them himself. Isaiah nodded, writing quickly. Good. We'll need their testimonies. And we'll need copies of your employment records, pay stubs, any written communications from the Caldwells. I have most of those at home, Lena said. But won't they retaliate? They could make sure none of us ever work in this town again. That's why we need to be strategic, Isaiah explained. We document everything, build our case carefully, then present it all at once through the proper channels. Retaliation would only make their legal situation worse if we do this right. He showed her how to transfer the video to her phone, then helped her create encrypted backups. They spent the next hour planning their next steps, speaking in hushed voices as the dinner party continued inside. Tomorrow morning, I'll make some calls to my old contacts in the legal world, Isaiah said. We'll need to move carefully, but quickly. The longer we wait, the more chance they have to cover their tracks. Lena nodded, clutching her phone tightly. The video evidence felt like a shield, a small protection against the Caldwell's power. But it also felt like a ticking bomb that could explode in her face if she wasn't careful. I should get home, she said, standing up stiffly. Her knees still ached from crawling. My sister will be worried if I'm too late. Isaiah stood as well, brushing off his work pants. Be careful. Try to act normal tomorrow. And if anything else happens, anything at all, call me immediately. He handed her a piece of paper with his number. You're not alone in this fight anymore, Miss Goodson. Lena carefully tucked the paper into her pocket. Thank you, she whispered, for helping, for caring. We'll get through this, Isaiah assured her. Just remember, document everything and watch your back. Lena walked to her car, parked in the staff lot behind the kitchen. The phone in her hand felt heavy with the weight of its contents, but her heart felt lighter than it had all evening. For the first time in years, she wasn't just enduring, she was fighting back. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Bell Ridge police station's brick facade as Lena pulled into the parking lot. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white with tension. Isaiah's car was already there, and she spotted him waiting by the entrance, a leather briefcase in hand. Ready? He asked as she approached, his calm presence steadying her nerves. Lena took a deep breath, smoothing her dress. She'd chosen her Sunday best, a navy blue dress and sensible shoes, hoping to be taken seriously. As ready as I'll ever be. The station's interior was cool and dim, smelling of coffee and old paper. A heavy-set desk sergeant looked up from his computer, his expression bored. "Can I help you?" "We need to file a complaint," Isaiah said professionally, "regarding a serious incident at the Caldwell residence." At the mention of Caldwell, the sergeant's face changed subtly. His eyes narrowed, scanning them both more carefully. "Take a seat. Officer Brooks will be with you shortly." They sat in hard plastic chairs against the wall. Lena's leg bounced nervously as she watched officers walk past, some giving them curious glances. After 20 minutes, a young officer approached, his badge reading Brooks. "Follow me," he said curtly, leading them to a small interview room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as they settled into chairs around a metal table. Officer Brooks pulled out a notepad, his pen hovering expectantly. "What seems to be the problem?" Lena's throat felt dry. "Last night, at the Caldwell mansion, I was forced to—" Her voice cracked slightly. "I was forced to crawl on the floor and bark like a dog while the family and their guests laughed and recorded it." Brooks's eyebrows rose slightly, but his expression remained neutral. "And you are—" "Lena Goodson. I work as a maid for the Caldwells." "I see." Brooks scribbled something. "And why were you crawling?" "Their son, Oliver, ordered me to. When I refused, Mrs. Caldwell said it was just a harmless game and that I should learn to take a joke. Mr. Caldwell threatened my job if I didn't comply." "That's a serious accusation," Brooks said, his tone suggesting the opposite. "Any witnesses?" "I have video evidence," Isaiah interjected, pulling out his phone. "I recorded the incident." Brooks watched the video with an unreadable expression. The sound of laughter and Lena's humiliation filled the small room. When it finished, he cleared his throat. "Well, Ms. Goodson, while this appears unfortunate, I'm not seeing any clear criminal activity." "Not seeing any—" Lena started, but Isaiah touched her arm gently. "Officer Brooks," Isaiah said calmly, "what we have here is clear evidence of workplace harassment, racial discrimination, and creation of a hostile work environment. These are serious violations of both state and federal law." Brooks leaned back, something harder entering his expression. "And you are?" "Isaiah Carter. I'm assisting Ms. Goodson with this complaint." "You a lawyer, Mr. Carter?" "I was. Currently, I work as a gardener at the Caldwell estate." Brooks closed his notepad. "Then you should know better than to waste police time with employment disputes. This is a civil matter, if anything." "This goes beyond a simple employment dispute," Isaiah pressed. The video shows a private party where someone was playing along with a joke." Brooks interrupted. "Nothing criminal occurred. If Ms. Goodson has workplace complaints, she should take them up with her employers or seek civil counsel." Lena felt anger rising in her chest. "They filmed me crawling on the floor. They laughed while treating me like an animal." "Lower your voice, ma'am," Brooks warned. "Listen, I know the Caldwells. They're upstanding members of this community. They provide jobs, donate to charity, fund half the programs in this town. Maybe you should consider whether you're overreacting to a simple misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Lena's voice shook. "They humiliated me." "They—" The door opened, and an older man in a sheriff's uniform stepped in. Sheriff Matthews' face was stern as he surveyed the room. "Everything all right in here, Brooks?" "Yes, sir. Just finishing up with a minor complaint." Matthews nodded, then fixed his gaze on Lena. "Ms. Goodson, isn't it? Richard Caldwell mentioned you might be coming by. Said there was some confusion about a party game last night." Lena felt ice in her veins. They'd already gotten to him. Now, Matthews continued, his voice patronizing, I understand you might be feeling embarrassed, but making false accusations against respected citizens is a serious matter. Could result in charges of filing false reports, defamation, lots of unpleasant consequences. Isaiah stood slowly. Are you threatening my client, Sheriff? Matthews smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Not at all. Just offering friendly advice. Bell Ridge is a peaceful town. We take care of our own here. Wouldn't want anyone stirring up unnecessary trouble. He reached for Isaiah's phone, still sitting on the table. Mind if I see this video everyone's talking about? Before either could object, Matthews picked up the phone. His thick fingers worked the screen for a moment, then he frowned. Seems the file's corrupted. Can't open it. He placed the phone back down. Technology, right? So unreliable. Lena's heart sank as she checked her own phone. The video was gone there, too. Well, Matthews said cheerfully, since there's no evidence of any crime, I think we're done here. Officer Brooks, please escort these folks out. And Ms. Goodson? His voice hardened slightly. Be more careful about making accusations you can't prove. Next time might not end so pleasantly. The walk out of the station felt endless. Lena's legs were shaky, and her eyes burned with unshed tears. The morning sun seemed too bright now, mocking their failure. I'm so sorry, Isaiah said quietly, as they reached their cars. I should have made backup copies. Should have. It's not your fault, Lena interrupted. You tried to help, but they're all in it together, aren't they? The whole system. We'll find another way, Isaiah promised. This isn't over. Lena drove home in a daze, her mind replaying the sheriff's threats. The house was quiet when she arrived, her sister still at work. She sank onto the couch, emotionally exhausted. The phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Hello? A distorted voice spoke. Stop talking, or disappear. The line went dead. Dawn broke over Bell Ridge as Lena parked her old Honda at the service entrance of the Caldwell mansion. Her hands trembled as she turned off the engine, the anonymous caller's threat still echoing in her mind. Stop talking, or disappear. The mansion loomed before her, its elegant Georgian architecture now seeming more menacing than magnificent. Lena had come early, hoping to avoid the family while she collected her things. She couldn't work here anymore. Not after yesterday's humiliation and the police station's betrayal. Using her key, she quietly entered through the service door. The kitchen was still dark and silent, the air heavy with leftover cooking smells from last night's dinner service. Her footsteps echoed on the marble floor as she made her way to the staff locker room. Just get your things and leave, she whispered to herself, trying to steady her nerves. The locker room was small but neat, with a row of metal lockers along one wall. Lena opened hers, quickly gathering her spare uniform, comfortable shoes, and personal items into her canvas bag. A photo of her family stuck to the inside of the door caught her eye. Her sister's graduation day, all of them smiling proudly. She carefully peeled it off and tucked it away. As she closed the locker, voices drifted down from upstairs, probably the kitchen staff arriving. Lena froze. She didn't want to face anyone's questions or, worse, their pity. The basement door caught her eye. It led to a maze of storage rooms and utilities, but also offered a quiet exit through the garden level. Without hesitation, Lena slipped through the door and down the concrete stairs. The basement was cooler, dimly lit by fluorescent tubes that buzzed overhead. She walked quickly, passing the laundry room and storage areas, when something unusual caught her attention. Light spilling from beneath a door she'd never noticed before. Lena hesitated. This section of the basement was supposedly off-limits to staff, but the door stood slightly ajar. Common sense told her to keep walking, but curiosity pulled her forward. She peered through the gap. It was an office, surprisingly well furnished for a basement room. A large desk dominated the space, its surface covered with papers and files. What caught her eye was the computer screen, still glowing. Someone had forgotten to shut it down. "I shouldn't," Lena whispered, but her feet carried her inside anyway. The desk was a mess of documents, many bearing official-looking letterheads. One folder lay open, revealing what looked like payroll records. Lena's eyes widened as she read. The numbers didn't match what she and her co-workers actually received. Not even close. Her heart pounding, Lena began examining more papers. Bank statements showed massive transfers to offshore accounts. Letters detailed arrangements with local officials, including Sheriff Matthews, describing regular contributions in exchange for cooperation. A spreadsheet listed workers, many undocumented, paid far below minimum wage. "Oh my God," Lena breathed, her hands shaking as she lifted her phone. She began carefully photographing documents, making sure each page was clear and readable. This was more than simple corruption. This was systematic fraud on a massive scale. A ledger marked Bell Ridge Development revealed property deals where the Caldwells had bought land at artificially low prices after bribing assessors. Another file showed how they'd manipulated contracts for city projects, inflating costs and pocketing millions in taxpayer money. Footsteps overhead made Lena jump. She quickly but methodically continued photographing, knowing she might never get another chance. The documents told a story of greed and exploitation that had built the Caldwells' $330 million empire, all on the backs of people like her. A door slammed somewhere upstairs. Lena's heart raced as she carefully returned everything to its exact position, making sure not to disturb a single paper. She closed the office door precisely as she'd found it and hurried through the basement, her phone feeling like it carried nuclear secrets. Emerging from the garden-level exit, Lena blinked in the morning sunlight. She walked quickly toward the gates, trying to appear casual while her pulse thundered in her ears. Just before the exit, she spotted Isaiah near the rose garden, pruning shears in hand. His eyes widened when he saw her expression. Setting down his tools, he quickly joined her by the gates. "Lena, what's wrong?" She glanced back at the mansion, then pulled him further away from the property. "I found something," she whispered, hands still trembling as she pulled out her phone. "In the basement. Isaiah, it's bigger than we thought. So much bigger." Isaiah's expression grew increasingly grave as she showed him the photos, his gardener's calm replaced by the sharp focus of his lawyer days. "This is—" He paused, searching for words. "This is federal-level fraud, RICO territory. The scope of this corruption. They're stealing from everyone," Lena said, her voice tight with anger. "The workers, the city, taxpayers, and using the money to buy protection. To keep people like me silent. This explains why the police were so quick to shut us down," Isaiah muttered, still scrolling through the photos. "The Caldwells have half the town's officials in their pocket." A car door slammed near the mansion, making them both start. "We need to get you out of here," Isaiah said urgently. "If they realize you found this—" Lena nodded, already moving toward her car. The weight of what she'd discovered pressed on her chest, equal parts terrifying and empowering. The Caldwells had hurt so many people, hidden behind their wealth and connections. But now she had proof. "What do we do?" she asked Isaiah as they reached her Honda. His eyes were focused and determined, all traces of the humble gardener gone. "We use it. Carefully. This is the kind of evidence that can bring down their whole empire, if we play it right." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Isaiah's modest kitchen table, now covered with Lena's phone photos and hastily scribbled notes. They had spent hours organizing the evidence, creating a detailed list of names and incidents from the Caldwell documents. "Maria Rodriguez," Lena said, pointing to a name on their list. She's worked in their laundry room for 3 years. The papers show they're paying her half of minimum wage and threatening to report her if she complains. Isaiah nodded, typing the information into his laptop. And she's not the only one. There are at least 30 workers in similar situations. He rubbed his tired eyes. We need to approach them carefully. The wrong word to the wrong person could alert the Caldwells. Lena pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. I trust Carmen from the kitchen staff. She's seen how they treat people, and she knows others who will talk. They worked methodically, reaching out to workers they believed would keep quiet. Lena sent careful text messages, arranging to meet people away from the mansion. Isaiah used his gardening rounds to pass discreet notes to outdoor staff. By late afternoon, they had scheduled meetings with 5 employees at a small diner on the edge of town. Carmen arrived first, sliding into their booth with nervous energy. "The things I could tell you," she whispered, glancing around the nearly empty diner. "Last month, Mrs. Caldwell docked my pay because I didn't iron her sheets with the correct technique. When I complained, Mr. Caldwell threatened to call immigration on my cousin. More workers arrived gradually. Kitchen staff, groundskeepers, housekeepers. Each carried similar stories of abuse, wage theft, and threats. Isaiah recorded their testimonies carefully on his phone while Lena took notes. "We need to be smart about this," Isaiah cautioned the group. "The Caldwells have powerful friends, but they're not invincible. With enough evidence and enough voices, we can expose them." "I have pictures," offered James, a groundskeeper. "Times when they made us work 16-hour days with no overtime. And the way young Oliver treats us." He shuddered, remembering incidents like Lena's humiliation. They were so focused on gathering testimonies, they didn't notice the man in the corner booth taking photos with his phone. He slipped out quietly, heading straight to the Caldwell mansion. Later that evening, Lena's phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. "They know. Someone told them about the meeting. Mrs. Caldwell is furious." Within hours, the Caldwells' retaliation began. Lena's social media accounts were flooded with comments calling her a thief and a troublemaker. A local news website ran a story about her history of workplace violations, all fabricated but devastating to her reputation. Her phone rang constantly with anonymous calls. When she finally answered one, Vivian Caldwell's cold voice cut through. "You ungrateful little snake! You'll never work in this town again." Exhausted and stressed, Lena drove home as darkness fell. But something felt wrong as she approached her apartment building. Police cars sat in the parking lot, their lights flashing. Her landlord stood outside her door with 2 officers. "Miss Goodson," he said, not meeting her eyes, "I'm serving you with an immediate eviction notice. We've received evidence of illegal activity." "What? That's impossible," Lena protested, but the officers moved closer. "You have 1 hour to collect your belongings," her landlord said. "After that, the locks will be changed." Lena's hands shook as she called Isaiah. He arrived quickly, helping her throw essential items into bags and boxes. "They're trying to scare you," he said, carrying a box to his car. "Make you feel powerless." "Well, it's working," Lena admitted, grabbing armfuls of clothes from her closet. "Everything I've worked for. My home, my reputation." "You can stay with me," Isaiah said firmly. "I have a spare room. They want to isolate you, but we won't let them." They worked quickly, loading Isaiah's car with whatever they could fit. Lena's heart ached as she looked around her half-empty apartment, knowing she'd have to leave furniture and memories behind. Her phone buzzed again, more threatening messages. But one caught her eye, from Carmen. "We're with you. Don't give up." In Isaiah's car, Lena scrolled through the online smear campaign against her. Articles called her dangerous and unstable. Comments suggested she was running a theft ring. The Caldwells' PR team had worked fast to destroy her credibility. They think this will silence me, Lena said, her voice growing stronger despite her exhaustion. But they're wrong. Every dirty trick they pull just proves how corrupt they are. Isaiah drove carefully through the darkened streets, checking his mirrors for any cars following them. We need to move faster now, he said. They've shown their hand. They're scared of what we know. At Isaiah's small house, they carried Lena's belongings into the spare room. The space was simple, but clean, with a window overlooking a small garden. Isaiah had already put fresh sheets on the bed and cleared space in the closet. Sitting on the bed, surrounded by boxes and bags, Lena felt tears finally break free. The day's events crashed over her. The secret meetings, the threats, losing her home. But beneath the fear and exhaustion, something else burned. Determination. They think they can bully anyone who stands up to them, she said, wiping her eyes. That's how they've kept power for so long. But we have evidence now. We have witnesses. And I'm not backing down. Isaiah nodded, understanding in his eyes. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow, we start fighting back harder. The morning sun filtered through Isaiah's kitchen windows, casting warm light on the faces gathered around his small table. 6 people sat crowded together, coffee mugs and notebooks scattered between them. Despite their exhaustion, determination burned in their eyes. We need to be smarter than them, Lena said, standing at the head of the table. The Caldwells think money and fear can silence anyone, but we're going to prove them wrong. Carmen nodded, her hands wrapped tightly around her coffee mug. 3 more workers contacted me last night. They're scared, but they want to talk. We can't meet in public again, Isaiah reminded them. They're watching diners, coffee shops, anywhere obvious. He spread out a rough map of Bell Ridge on the table. We need safe spaces. James, the groundskeeper, pointed to several locations. There's the old community center on Oak Street. The basement's usually empty. And my church lets groups use their meeting rooms. Pastor Williams would help us. Lena studied the map, marking potential meeting spots with small X's. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from other workers, each carrying stories of abuse and exploitation. The Caldwells' empire was built on broken backs and stolen wages. What about evidence? Asked Maria, who'd worked in the mansion's kitchen for 5 years. They're probably destroying documents right now. Isaiah pulled out his laptop. That's why we need copies of everything. Pay stubs, work schedules, any written threats. He opened a secure folder. I've created encrypted storage for photos and scans. They can't trace it back to us. The group spent an hour organizing their approach. They divided Bell Ridge into sectors, each person responsible for quietly connecting with workers in their area. Isaiah taught them basic security measures, using Signal instead of regular texts, avoiding social media, watching for people following them. Remember, Lena emphasized, we're not just collecting complaints. We need proof that shows a pattern of abuse and fraud. Dates, times, witnesses, everything matters. Around 9 o'clock, Carmen and the others left separately, taking different routes home to avoid attention. Lena stayed at the table, staring at her phone. There was one more critical call to make. You're sure about this? Isaiah asked, understanding her hesitation. Lena nodded. Tasha and I grew up together. She's built her career on exposing corruption. If anyone will help us, it's her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed Tasha Morgan's number. They hadn't spoken in months, both too busy with work. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Lena, is everything okay? I saw some weird stories about you online. Tasha, I need to meet with you. Privately. It's important. Lena's voice stayed steady. Remember how you always said you wanted to break a story that really mattered? There was a pause. Give me an hour. I'll come to you. Isaiah's living room transformed into an impromptu news center when Tasha arrived. She brought her laptop and recording equipment, her journalist's instincts already firing. Her eyes widened as Lena and Isaiah laid out their evidence. "This is massive," Tasha whispered, scrolling through photos of doctored payroll records, wage theft, labor violations, blackmail, and that video of what they did to you, Lena. My God. "We have 30 workers ready to testify," Isaiah explained. "More coming forward every day. But they need protection. The Caldwells already started retaliating." Tasha's fingers flew across her keyboard, taking notes. "My producer will want to verify everything independently. We'll need to fact-check every claim, get legal clearance." She looked up at Lena. "This could take weeks to prepare properly. People are suffering now," Lena insisted. "Every day we wait, the Caldwells hurt more families." "I understand." Tasha reached across the coffee table, squeezing Lena's hand. "But we have to do this right. If we rush and make mistakes, they'll discredit everything. Their lawyers will tear us apart." They spent the next 2 hours outlining a strategy. Tasha would begin quiet investigations, corroborating testimonies and documenting evidence. Meanwhile, Lena and Isaiah would continue gathering workers' stories, building an unshakable case. "We'll need to interview everyone on camera," Tasha explained. "But we'll do it carefully, faces shadowed, voices altered. No one risks their safety." Isaiah pulled up a secure messaging app on his laptop. "We can coordinate through this. Even if they hack our regular communications, they can't access it." Energy filled the room as they worked, a sense of purpose replacing their earlier fear. Tasha's journalistic experience helped them organize their evidence more effectively. She knew what questions to ask, what details would resonate with viewers. "The public needs to see the real Caldwells," she said, reviewing their notes. "Not just the charitable facade they show at galas. People need to understand how they've terrorized this community." Lena stood by the window, watching the late morning sun climb higher. For the first time since Oliver had forced her to crawl like an animal, she felt something beyond anger and humiliation. She felt power growing, not the Caldwells' kind of power built on cruelty and greed, but something stronger. "We're going to change things," she said softly. "Not just for us, but for everyone they've hurt." Tasha packed up her equipment, promising to start work immediately. "I'll contact some colleagues at national networks too," she added. "Once this breaks, it needs to spread fast. The Caldwells won't be able to contain it." The room slowly emptied as their allies left, each carrying assignments and renewed determination. Isaiah walked Tasha to her car, checking the street for any suspicious vehicles. When he returned, he found Lena still standing by the window, her posture straighter, her eyes clearer. "You did good today," he said. "Building a team, getting Tasha involved. We're stronger now." Lena turned to him, a small smile touching her lips. "For days, I felt so trapped, like they could just erase me, make me disappear." She gestured to the notes and maps spread across the room. "But this is how we fight back. Not alone, but together." She gathered her jacket, ready to head out and meet with more workers. The fear wasn't gone. She knew the Caldwells would strike back harder when they realized what was coming. But for the first time since that horrible dinner party, she felt truly empowered. They had a plan, they had allies, and most importantly, they had the truth. The morning sun cast long shadows across the WBRG news station parking lot as Lena pulled in. Her heart raced with anticipation. After weeks of gathering evidence and testimonies, they were finally ready to expose the truth. The security guard recognized her, buzzed her through without question. She'd been here several times over the past week, working with Tasha to prepare the story. The newsroom hummed with pre-broadcast energy. Reporters hunched over computers, Producers barked instructions through headsets, and interns rushed around with stacks of papers. Lena headed straight for Tasha's office, her footsteps quickening when she saw her friend through the glass walls. Something was wrong. Tasha sat at her desk, head in her hands. Papers lay scattered across her usually organized workspace. When she looked up at Lena's knock, her eyes were red-rimmed. "Come in," Tasha said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Close the door." Lena's stomach tightened as she entered. The morning broadcast was scheduled to start in less than an hour. Everything was ready. The interviews, the evidence, the expose that would shake Bell Ridge to its core. "What's happening?" Lena asked, though dread told her she already knew. Tasha's hands trembled as she picked up her phone, turning it to show Lena a series of text messages. "They know everything. Every person we interviewed. Every document we collected." She swallowed hard. "They have photos of my daughter at school, my parents' medical records, bank statements showing every payment I've ever received that could look questionable." "The Caldwells," Lena breathed, sinking into a chair. "Not just them," Tasha's voice cracked. "The station owner called me at midnight. If I run the story, I'll never work in journalism again. Neither will anyone who helps me." She gestured helplessly at her desk. "They've already pulled the segment. Security's been ordered to confiscate any copies." Lena leaned forward, gripping the edge of the desk. "We can't let them win like this. We have proof of everything. The abuse, the fraud, the threats. They don't care about proof." Tasha stood suddenly, pacing the small office. "They care about power, and they have it. Over the media, over the police, over everyone in this town." She stopped, facing Lena with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to help, but my daughter—" "I understand," Lena said quietly, though her chest felt like it was being crushed. "Family comes first. Maybe," Tasha hesitated, "maybe you should stop too. They're not going to give up. They'll destroy everyone who stands against them." Lena shook her head, rising from her chair. "That's exactly why we can't stop. Because they think they can destroy people without consequences." She left the office in a daze, barely noticing the pitying looks from other reporters who'd clearly heard about the killed story. The morning sun felt too bright, too cheerful as she walked to her car. Her phone buzzed, a message from Isaiah saying he'd found 3 more workers willing to testify. She couldn't bring herself to respond yet. The drive home passed in a blur of familiar streets and growing despair. They'd been so careful, so thorough in their planning. But the Caldwells' reach extended further than they'd imagined, corrupting every system meant to protect people from exactly this kind of abuse. Smoke on the horizon snapped Lena back to attention. Dark clouds billowed up from the direction of Isaiah's neighborhood. Her heart stopped as she made the turn onto his street, then started hammering against her ribs. Fire trucks clustered around the charred skeleton of Isaiah's small house. Water still dripped from the blackened walls, steam rising in the mid-morning heat. Yellow police tape fluttered in the wind. "No! No! No!" Lena scrambled out of her car, racing toward the ruins. A firefighter tried to stop her, but she pushed past him. "Isaiah! Isaiah!" "Lena!" The voice came from behind her. She spun to see Isaiah sitting in the back of an ambulance, an oxygen mask hanging around his neck. His face was smudged with soot, his right arm bandaged. She ran to him, relief warring with horror. "What happened? Are you okay?" "I was in the garden when it started." His voice was hoarse from smoke. "Saw them pull away in a black SUV. No plates. By the time I called 911, the whole place was going up." He coughed, wincing. "They used accelerant. The fire chief already told me they probably won't find any evidence." Lena looked back at the ruined house. All their files, their carefully gathered evidence, the testimonies. Everything's gone. Not everything. Isaiah pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "I kept backups in a fireproof safe. But Lena, he gripped her hand. They're sending a message. They won't stop at property damage next time. A police car pulled up, and Lena recognized one of the officers who'd dismissed her complaint weeks ago. He smirked as he walked past them, already preparing to write this off as an electrical accident. "I'm so sorry," Lena whispered, guilt crushing her chest. "This is my fault. I dragged you into this." "No." Isaiah's voice strengthened. "You showed me there was still something worth fighting for in this town." He stood slowly, refusing the paramedics' attempt to make him sit back down. "I left law because I thought the system was too corrupt to change. But you proved there's another way. Through unity. Through courage." Lena watched as firefighters continued spraying down hot spots, securing the scene. The morning's defeats felt overwhelming. Tasha's withdrawal, the lost chance at exposure, and now this violent warning. But Isaiah's unwavering support reminded her why they'd started this fight. "They think burning down your home will make us give up," she said, helping Isaiah gather what few possessions the firefighters had salvaged. "They don't understand that every attack just proves how much they need to be stopped." The neon sign of the Starlight Motel buzzed and flickered against the darkening sky. Lena sat on the edge of the lumpy bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper while Isaiah paced the small room, his bandaged arm held close to his chest. "We need to think this through carefully," Isaiah said, stopping to lean against the dresser. "The Caldwells are getting desperate. That makes them more dangerous." Lena nodded, touching the flash drive they'd salvaged from Isaiah's house. It felt impossibly small to contain their hopes for justice. "We've lost our media contact, most of our evidence, and now you're home. Maybe Tasha was right. Maybe we should." The cheap burner phone on the nightstand rang, making them both jump. They'd bought it that afternoon, giving the number only to their most trusted allies. Isaiah picked it up, frowning at the unknown number. "Hello," he put it on speaker. "Is this Isaiah Carter?" The male voice was quiet, cultured, and nervous. "I'm Walter Hines, former CFO of Caldwell Enterprises. I need to speak with you and Ms. Goodson. It's urgent." Lena and Isaiah exchanged worried looks. Walter Hines had left the company 6 months ago with no explanation, vanishing from Bell Ridge's social circles. "How did you get this number?" Isaiah demanded. "From one of the housekeepers you interviewed. Please, I know about the fire, about the news story being killed. I can help, but we need to meet tonight. I won't be in town long." "This could be a trap," Lena whispered, covering the phone's microphone. Isaiah nodded. "Mr. Hines, why should we trust you?" "Because I helped build the system that's crushing you now." Walter's voice cracked. "And I can't live with that anymore. Meet me at the old Miller's warehouse in 30 minutes. Come alone. I'll know if you don't." The line went dead. Lena stood, her heart pounding. "I know that warehouse. It's been abandoned for years." "Perfect place for an ambush," Isaiah muttered, "but also perfect for someone who genuinely needs to stay hidden." He ran his good hand through his hair. "Your call, Lena. We do this together." Lena thought of everything they'd lost. Everything still at stake. "We go, but carefully." 20 minutes later, they parked a block from the warehouse, approaching on foot through the shadows of defunct loading docks. The building loomed dark and silent, except for a faint light showing through one grimy window. Around back, a voice called softly. They found Walter Hines waiting by a rusted door, looking nothing like the polished executive from newspaper photos. His expensive suit was rumpled, his face haggard with exhaustion and fear. "Inside," he said, glancing nervously at the street. "Quickly." The warehouse smelled of dust and old metal. Walter led them to a small office where a battery-powered lantern cast weird shadows. He closed the door behind them, then pulled a laptop from his briefcase. "I've been watching everything unfold," he said, hands shaking slightly as he typed. "The video of their son humiliating you, Ms. Goodson. The evidence you found. The fire." He looked up, his eyes haunted. "I helped Richard Caldwell build his empire on exploitation and fraud. 15 years of cooking books, hiding evidence, paying off the right people." "Why are you telling us this now?" Lena asked. "Because 6 months ago, I found out they weren't just stealing wages and bribing officials." Walter turned the laptop around. "They were using the company to launder money for drug cartels, human traffickers, people who make the Caldwells look kind in comparison. When I confronted Richard, he threatened my family. Said he'd frame my son for a crime that would put him away for life." Isaiah leaned forward, studying the screen. "These are transaction records? Everything. Every bribe, every threat, every illegal deal for the past decade. Plus recordings of meetings, emails, text messages, all backed up on secure servers they can't reach." Walter pulled out a small black device. "This encryption key will give you access. I've spent months making sure they can't trace it back to me." Lena took the device, her fingers trembling. "Why didn't you go to the FBI?" "I tried. Found out the local office was compromised. Had to run before they could silence me." He started packing up the laptop. "But you've done something I never could. You've given people hope, made them brave enough to speak up. With this evidence and those testimonies..." A car engine rumbled in the distance. Walter froze, then quickly finished packing. "I've stayed too long. Use the evidence carefully. Build your case through channels they don't control. And watch out for Vivian. She's more dangerous than Richard when cornered." "Wait," Isaiah said. "We'll need you to testify eventually. I'll be ready when the time comes. My contact information is in the files. But for now..." Walter shouldered his briefcase. "I need to disappear again. Good luck. Make it count." He slipped out the back door, leaving Lena and Isaiah staring at the encryption key. The weight of its possibilities filled the dusty air between them. "You know what this means?" Lena said softly, clutching the key. "We're not just fighting the Caldwells anymore. This goes so much deeper." Isaiah nodded, his expression grim but determined. "Then we'll dig deeper. Build the case right this time. Find allies they can't threaten or buy off." Lena stood, tucking the encryption key securely away. Her fear from earlier had transformed into a fierce, focused energy. The Caldwells had tried to bury them, not realizing they were seeds. And with Walter's evidence, they finally had real hope of breaking through to the light. The afternoon sun streamed through the public library's windows as Lena hunched over a computer terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Isaiah sat beside her, carefully reviewing the final draft of their statement. Around them, other library patrons worked quietly, unaware of the bombshell about to drop. "Walter's encryption key worked perfectly," Lena whispered, scrolling through the massive archive of evidence. "Everything's here: bank statements, recorded meetings, illegal contracts, even private messages between the Caldwells about covering up the abuse." Isaiah nodded, his expression focused. "The video is ready too. I've edited it to show both the original incident and a timeline of their retaliation." He touched his bandaged arm unconsciously. "Are you sure about this? Once we hit send, there's no going back." Lena's hand hovered over the mouse. The document they'd prepared laid out everything: the humiliation she'd endured, the systematic wage theft, the money laundering, the corruption of local officials. Along with Walter's evidence, they'd attached statements from dozens of workers, each telling their own story of abuse and exploitation. "I'm sure," she said, clicking Post. "Send the press releases." They worked methodically, following the plan they'd developed. First, the video and documentation went live on multiple social media platforms. Then, emails went out to national news organizations, civil rights groups, and federal authorities. Finally, They activated the network of supporters they'd built, each person sharing and amplifying the story. Within an hour, their phones began buzzing constantly. The first major news site picked up the story, their headline screaming, "Shocking video! Wealthy family forces made to crawl. Explosive evidence reveals criminal empire." "Look," Isaiah said, showing Lena his tablet. The video was spreading like wildfire, with thousands of shares and comments pouring in every minute. People were outraged, demanding justice, sharing their own stories of abuse by the powerful. The library's quiet was broken by a news alert on someone's phone. Then another, and another. Lena pulled up a national news website, her heart racing as she saw her own face on the front page, alongside details of the Caldwell's crimes. "CNN is covering it live," Isaiah whispered excitedly. "And look, the FBI just released a statement. They're opening a formal investigation." Lena read the FBI's announcement, her hands shaking slightly. "The Bureau takes these allegations extremely seriously. A full investigation into Caldwell Enterprises and related parties is underway. We urge anyone with additional information to come forward." Their phones buzzed again. Messages from civil rights organizations offering support, legal assistance, protection. The National Workers' Rights Coalition pledged to file a class action lawsuit. The Southern Justice Center promised to send investigators and attorneys. "Lena, look at this." Isaiah showed her social media posts from Bell Ridge. Their neighbors, finally free from fear, were sharing their own stories of the Caldwell's abuse. The wall of silence was crumbling. A text came from Walter. "Well done. Stay safe. My lawyers will contact you soon." They left the library as the afternoon sun began to fade, driving carefully to avoid the news vans already appearing on Bell Ridge's streets. They'd arranged to meet their core group of supporters at a small coffee shop on the edge of town, somewhere the Caldwells never visited. The shop was closed to regular customers, but warm light spilled from its windows. Inside, 24 people waited. Housekeepers, gardeners, maintenance workers, all who'd risked everything to stand with Lena. When she walked in, they broke into applause. Tasha, the news anchor who'd been forced to kill the story, rushed forward to hug her. "I'm so sorry I couldn't help before, but it's happening now. It's really happening." Someone had set up a small TV in the corner, showing news coverage. The Caldwell mansion was surrounded by reporters. A stern-faced FBI agent was giving a statement. The ticker at the bottom read, "Caldwell Empire under investigation. Assets frozen. Look at those fancy cars leaving the neighborhood," one of the housekeepers laughed. "All those friends running away now that the truth is out." Isaiah raised a paper cup of coffee. "To Lena," he said quietly, "who showed us all how to stand up." "To all of us," Lena corrected, looking around at the faces of people who'd become more than allies. They were family now. "We did this together." For the first time in days, Lena felt herself truly smile. The weight of fear and anger lifted, replaced by something lighter, sweeter. It wasn't over. She knew there would be more battles ahead. But right now, in this moment, surrounded by people who'd risked everything for justice, she allowed herself to feel joy. They celebrated quietly, sharing coffee and hope, watching as their truth spread across the nation. Outside, the sun set on a changed Bell Ridge, where the powerful were learning they weren't untouchable after all. Lena woke to the insistent buzzing of her phone. The cheap motel room was still dark, dawn barely breaking outside. 27 missed calls lit up her screen. "Lena, everything's gone!" It was Walter, his usually calm voice shaking. "The website's been wiped clean. All our evidence vanished. Someone launched a massive cyber attack overnight." She sat up, fully awake now. "What do you mean, vanished?" "Professional hackers. They didn't just delete the posts, They corrupted all the backups, infected the cloud storage. Even my personal copies are encrypted. They're threatening to destroy everything if we try to recover any of it. More calls poured in. News organizations reporting their stories had mysteriously disappeared from their websites. Social media platforms claiming technical difficulties had erased millions of shares and comments. The FBI's public statement about the investigation was suddenly unavailable. Lena's hands trembled as she tried to access their evidence folder. The screen flashed red, displaying a skull and crossbones. Everything they'd worked for, everything they'd risked their lives to expose. Gone in hours. She rushed to Isaiah's adjoining room, pounding on the door. No answer. Strange, he was usually up before her. She called his cell. Straight to voicemail. The local morning news played quietly on the motel's ancient TV. Lena froze as she heard Isaiah's name. Breaking news. Police have arrested Isaiah Carter, 36, for the suspected arson of his own home and the murder of John Davies, 45, a local handyman whose remains were allegedly found in the ruins. Carter, a former lawyer with a history of mental instability. The room spun. John Davies. She knew him. He'd done maintenance work for Isaiah occasionally. The news showed police footage of Davies entering Isaiah's house the day of the fire, then cut to what they claimed were charred human remains. Her phone rang again. Tasha, crying. Lena! They're saying Isaiah planned it all. They have security footage, bank records showing him paying Davies to help stage the fire. They're calling it a publicity stunt gone wrong. Through the window, Lena saw police cars pulling into the motel parking lot, lights flashing. Heavy boots thundered up the metal stairs. Isaiah Carter, a voice boomed. Come out with your hands up. Lena ran to Isaiah's door just as they broke it down. Isaiah stood there, hands raised, still in his sleep clothes. Lena, don't! They slammed him against the wall, cuffing him roughly despite his injured arm. Isaiah cried out in pain. You have the right to remain silent, the officer sneered, twisting Isaiah's arm harder. Anything you say can and will be used against you. He's innocent, Lena screamed. The Caldwells did this. They're framing him. But more officers pushed her back, holding her away as they dragged Isaiah down the stairs. His glasses fell, crunching under police boots. Lena, stay strong, Isaiah called out. Don't let them... An officer's hand clamped over his mouth. They shoved him into a police car, his face pressed against the window. For a moment, their eyes met. Despite everything, Isaiah tried to smile, trying to reassure her even now. The police cars pulled away, leaving Lena standing alone in the morning sun. Her phone buzzed again, members of their coalition panicking. I can't risk it anymore, Lena. I have kids. They'll frame us all. I'm sorry, but I have to protect my family. We should never have trusted. One by one, they abandoned the fight. Lena couldn't blame them. The Caldwells had shown exactly what they were capable of, destroying evidence, fabricating crimes, even murder. Who would be next? She drove to the police station in a daze, barely seeing the road. The same officers who'd dismissed her complaint about the Caldwells now smirked as she begged to see Isaiah. No visitors for murder suspects, they said. But don't worry, he'll get a fair trial. Bell Ridge takes care of its own. Through a window, she glimpsed Isaiah being led to a cell, limping, his shirt stained with blood from his reopened wounds. He'd fought for justice, stood by her when everyone else ran. And this was his reward. Outside the station, Lena stood motionless, watching the sun climb higher over Bell Ridge. The mansions on the hill gleamed mockingly, the Caldwells' windows like eyes watching her every move. The morning was beautiful, peaceful, a stark contrast to the darkness crushing her heart. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. Back off now, or the next body they find will be yours. Some fights aren't worth dying for. Lena stared at the message, feeling the full weight of her isolation. Everyone who'd stood with her was gone, scared away, arrested, or worse. She was alone against an empire that could erase truth itself, frame an innocent man for murder, and make the world believe their lies. For the first time since this began, Lena felt truly defeated. The morning breeze carried distant laughter from the hill, the Caldwells celebrating their victory, while Isaiah sat in a cell, punished for daring to help her seek justice. Sunlight crept through the thin motel curtains, but Lena hadn't slept. She lay on the lumpy bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. The empty room felt huge without Isaiah's steady presence next door. Her phone sat silent. No more panicked calls, no more apologies from people abandoning ship. Just silence. She forced herself to sit up, wincing at her reflection in the scratched mirror. Dark circles marked her eyes, and her usually neat hair was a mess. What was the point of fixing it? What was the point of anything anymore? The events of the past week played through her mind like a cruel movie. The humiliation of crawling on the Caldwell's floor, barking like a dog while they laughed. The hope when Isaiah showed her the video. The crushing disappointment at the police station, finding the evidence in the basement, building their coalition, and then watching it all crumble. The evidence erased, Isaiah arrested. Everyone scattered in fear. Some fights aren't worth dying for. The threat message still glowed on her phone screen. Maybe they were right. What did she have to show for standing up? A destroyed reputation? An eviction notice? A friend in jail for a murder he didn't commit? And the Caldwells? Still in their mansion. Still untouchable. Probably planning their next move. Lena grabbed her small suitcase, starting to pack. She could leave Bell Ridge, start fresh somewhere else. Plenty of towns needed housekeepers. Places where rich families didn't force you to act like animals for their entertainment. Places where the police weren't bought and paid for. A knock at the door made her freeze. Was it the police again? The Caldwell's thugs? Ms. Goodson. Lena? Are you in there? She recognized that voice. Maria Rodriguez, one of the Caldwell's kitchen staff. Cautiously, Lena opened the door. Maria wasn't alone. Behind her stood 6 other workers. Carlos from maintenance, Rose from housekeeping, old Mr. Johnson who tended the gardens with Isaiah. Their faces were tired, but determined. "Can we come in?" Maria asked softly. Lena stepped back, letting them file into the small room. They looked out of place, still in their work uniforms, some clearly having come straight from their shifts. "We heard about Isaiah," Carlos said, his voice rough with emotion, "and the evidence being destroyed. But we're not running." Rose nodded firmly. "We saw what you did at that dinner party. How you kept your dignity, even while they tried to strip it away. You showed us something we'd forgotten, that we're human beings, not their property." "But Isaiah—" Lena's voice cracked. "They framed him. They'll do the same to you, or worse." Mr. Johnson stepped forward, leaning on his cane. "Child, I've worked for rich folks like the Caldwells for 60 years, seen them crush good people who stood up to them. But I've never seen anyone stand back up like you did. You gave us hope." "We're scared," Maria admitted. "But we're more scared of letting them win, of teaching our children that this is just how the world works." Carlos pulled out his phone. "I've been keeping records for years. Every illegal order, every safety violation, every threat. We all have." The others nodded, producing their own phones, notebooks, secret recordings. "They can hack websites," Rose said, "but they can't hack our memories, can't erase what we've seen with our own eyes." Mr. Johnson's weathered hand covered Lena's. "Isaiah believed in you. We believe in you too. Don't let them make you doubt yourself. Tears welled in Lena's eyes. She looked at these people, workers who risked everything just by being here. People who'd endured the Caldwell's abuse for years, but refused to break. Maria gestured to Lena's half-packed suitcase. Running won't fix this. They'll just find new people to hurt. New Isaiahs to frame. The only way forward is through. But how? Lena whispered. They have everything. Money, power, the police. They have things, Rose corrected. We have truth. And there are more of us than them. Mr. Johnson smiled gently. My grandmother was a slave. She used to say, when good people stand together, evil folks' mansions are built on sand. The Caldwells think they've won. That means they'll get sloppy. One by one, they shared their stories, the humiliations, the threats, the stolen wages, but also their small acts of resistance, their quiet gathering of evidence, their protection of each other. Lena's hands stopped shaking. The weight in her chest began to lift. She looked at these brave, ordinary people who refused to be broken, who came to her when she was at her lowest, offering not just support, but a path forward. Isaiah always said the law is like a sword, she said slowly. It cuts both ways. The Caldwells think they own it, but they're wrong. Maria squeezed her hand. So what do we do now, Heffa? Lena stood straighter, feeling strength flow back into her limbs. These people trusted her. Isaiah trusted her. She couldn't let their faith be wasted. Now, she said, her voice firm, we show them what real power looks like. The abandoned church basement felt like a war room. Folding chairs formed a circle under flickering fluorescent lights, and maps of Bell Ridge covered a rickety card table. Lena stood before the gathered workers, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The Caldwell's annual charity gala is in 3 days, she said, pointing to a glossy invitation Maria had swiped from the mansion's trash. Every news station in Georgia covers it. This year, they're even getting national attention because of their community outreach program. Carlos snorted. Community outreach? You mean paying us half minimum wage and calling it job training? Exactly. Lena spread out printouts of the gala's schedule. They're hosting it at City Hall this year. Mayor Thompson will be there, along with every corrupt official who's helped them build their empire. And Channel 5 is broadcasting the whole thing live. Rose raised her hand nervously. But how do we get in? Security will be everywhere. That's where we have an advantage. Lena nodded to Maria. Half of you already work there. The Caldwells hired you as servers, kitchen staff, cleaners. They think you're invisible, just part of the background, like furniture. They never even look at us, Mr. Johnson added. Don't see us as real people. But we see them, Lena continued. Every dirty deal, every cruel comment, every illegal order. And we have proof. She held up a thick manila envelope. Walter gave me backup copies of everything before the hack. Bank records, fake invoices, proof of bribes. But documents aren't enough. We need faces, real people telling real stories. The group shifted uncomfortably. Speaking publicly meant risking everything. I know it's scary, Lena acknowledged, but think about Isaiah, sitting in jail right now because we stayed quiet too long. Think about every worker who quit, rather than face another day of abuse. Think about your children, watching to see if you'll stand up or bow down. Maria stood up. I'll speak. My daughter asked me last week why I let Mrs. Caldwell call me stupid. I didn't have an answer, but now I will. Others slowly raised their hands. Carlos, Rose, 3 kitchen workers, a groundskeeper. Mr. Johnson struggled to his feet. I've got 60 years of stories, he said firmly. About time somebody heard them. Lena outlined the plan in detail. Those working the event would let the others in through service entrances. They'd wait until Vivian Caldwell's big speech about community partnership. Then, one by one, they'd stand up and tell their stories. Not angry shouts, but clear, dignified testimony. "The cameras will be rolling live," Lena explained. "They can't edit us out or shut it down without looking guilty. And Walter will be outside with copies of everything, ready to hand to reporters the moment we start." "What about security?" someone asked. "They'll try to stop us." That's why timing is crucial. We need to speak fast, hit hard with facts, make every second count before they can react. And we'll have our own live stream running too, so even if they cut the broadcast, nothing gets lost. They spent hours rehearsing their stories, timing them perfectly. Lena helped each person focus on specific incidents, clear details that would resonate with viewers. No ranting, no accusations, just truth, simply told. "Remember," she said, "we're not angry servants causing trouble. We're professionals exposing corruption. Citizens demanding justice. The Caldwells want to paint us as criminals. We have to show everyone who the real criminals are." As evening approached, they went over escape routes, backup plans, emergency contacts. Everyone memorized key details from the financial documents, so even if they were separated, the truth would still get out. "What about Isaiah?" Rose asked quietly. "Won't they hurt him worse when we do this?" "Walter's lawyer is ready to file for his release the moment we go public," Lena assured them. "With all eyes on the Caldwells, they won't be able to hide their frame job anymore." The meeting stretched into night. They checked equipment, practiced speeches, supported each other through moments of doubt. Some cried, remembering years of swallowed pride and buried anger. Others sat silently, perhaps still wondering if the risk was worth it. Finally, Lena gathered them close. 3 days, she said softly. 3 days until we take back our dignity. Until we show Bell Ridge what real community looks like. Until we prove that justice isn't just for the rich. 3 days until we're free, Maria added, and others nodded. They left in small groups, careful not to draw attention. Lena watched them go, these brave souls who chose to stand with her. Her stomach churned with anxiety. So much could go wrong. But beneath the fear was something stronger. Hope. Real, solid hope, built on unity and truth. She clutched the envelope of evidence, thinking of Isaiah in his cell, the Caldwells in their mansion, all the power they thought they had. In 3 days, everything would change. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Then Maria hurried into the basement, clutching an old violin case. She set it on the table and opened it to reveal a fat manila envelope and a tiny microfilm canister. "Walter never trusted computers," Maria whispered, her voice trembling. "Weeks ago, he gave me these, hard copies of everything, plus microfilm. He told me to hide them until the worst happened." She handed the materials to Lena. "They can erase files, but they can't hack my daughter's violin case." Carlos added, "And I've got these," spreading out black and white photos. Old school, developed at home. They never touched a computer. Lena blinked back tears, her hope rekindled. "So we still have proof?" Maria nodded. "Enough to bring down the Caldwells." The group leaned in as Lena gripped the evidence. The mood in the room shifted from despair to determination. "Let's make it count," she said, her voice strong, and together they began to plan. The City Hall ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and wealthy patrons in designer clothes. Lena adjusted her borrowed server's uniform, heart racing as she carried a tray of champagne through the crowd. Around her, other coalition members blended seamlessly into the background. Maria arranging flowers, Carlos checking sound equipment, Rose refilling water glasses. Vivian Caldwell held court near the stage, draped in diamonds and silk, laughing with the mayor's wife. She didn't even glance at Lena as she took a fresh glass of champagne. "The help is so well trained this year," Vivian remarked to her companion. "Almost invisible." Lena's hands trembled slightly, but she kept her face neutral. Through her earpiece, she heard Walter's calm voice. "Channel 5 is live. All backup streams are running. FBI agents are in position outside." The mayor stepped to the podium, introducing Vivian with flowery praise about her charitable works. Cameras rolled as she gracefully took the stage, beaming at the assembled elite of Bell Ridge. "Community partnership has always been the cornerstone of the Caldwell legacy," Vivian began, her voice dripping sincerity. "Our worker training program has helped hundreds of underprivileged—" "You mean underpaid," Lena called out clearly, setting down her tray and stepping forward. The microphone caught her words perfectly. "Or should we say, enslaved?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Security guards started forward, but froze as more servers stepped out of the shadows, forming a circle around the stage. "What is the meaning of this?" Vivian demanded, her polished mask cracking slightly. "The meaning is truth," Lena replied, climbing onto the stage. Her voice rang strong and steady. "The meaning is justice." Maria activated the large screen behind the stage, displaying Walter's carefully organized evidence. Banking records, fake invoices, damning emails. Lena faced the cameras directly. "My name is Lena Goodson, and I'm here to expose decades of systematic abuse and corruption by the Caldwell family." "Remove her immediately!" Vivian shrieked, but no one moved. The security guards looked uncertainly at the growing number of staff members revealing themselves. "3 days ago, your son forced me to crawl like a dog for your entertainment," Lena continued. "But that was just one small cruelty in an empire built on exploitation." Mr. Johnson stepped forward, his dignity palpable. 40 years I worked in their mansion. Never got a raise, never got benefits. When I broke my arm on the job, they threatened to fire me if I reported it. One by one, workers shared their stories. Maria described wage theft. Carlos detailed unsafe working conditions. Rose revealed sexual harassment by Richard Caldwell himself. Each testimony was clear, specific, and devastating. Vivian tried to reach for the microphone, but Lena held firm. "The evidence is already spreading nationwide. Walter Hines, your former CFO, provided proof of millions in embezzled funds, fake charities, and bribes to local officials." The mayor began edging toward the exit, but uniformed FBI agents appeared in the doorways. Vivian's face turned ashen as she recognized the federal badges. "You can't do this," she hissed at Lena. "Do you know who we are?" "Yes," Lena answered calmly. "You're criminals who thought money made you untouchable. You're bullies who mistook cruelty for power." The ballroom erupted in chaos as FBI agents moved in. Reporters shoved forward, cameras flashing. Wealthy guests scrambled to distance themselves from the Caldwells, their former friends suddenly toxic. Richard Caldwell burst through the crowd, face purple with rage. "You liar!" he screamed at Lena. "I'll destroy you!" "No," Lena said firmly. "You won't." She nodded to Maria, who played the video of Oliver forcing Lena to crawl. The audience watched in horrified silence as the Caldwells laughed and filmed her humiliation. "Mrs. Caldwell," an FBI agent announced, stepping onto the stage, "you and your husband are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, labor law violations, and conspiracy." Vivian struggled as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "This is ridiculous. We're pillars of the community." "The community you exploited?" Lena asked. "The workers you abused? The laws you broke?" "That ends tonight." Live cameras captured every moment as the Caldwells were led away in handcuffs. Their designer clothes and precious jewels couldn't hide their fear and fury now. Richard thrashed against the agents, shouting threats. Vivian's makeup ran with angry tears. Lena stood at the podium, watching her former tormentor's humiliating exit. The weight of years lifted from her shoulders. Around her, workers embraced each other, some crying with relief. Reporters swarmed, demanding interviews, but Lena kept her eyes on the Caldwells until they disappeared into waiting FBI vehicles. "Isaiah," she whispered into her earpiece, "did you see?" "Every second," his voice came back, thick with emotion. "Walter's lawyer is already filing my release papers. We did it, Lena. We really did it." Lena gripped the podium, steadying herself as cameras continued rolling. The truth was out. Justice had come at last, and Bell Ridge would never be the same. Morning sunlight streamed through the courthouse's tall windows, illuminating the packed gallery. Every bench was filled with workers, supporters, and media representatives. Camera flashes sparked like lightning as Lena and Isaiah entered together, their heads held high. Judge Martinez, a stern woman with silver-streaked hair, called the court to order. The wooden gavel's sharp crack silenced the murmuring crowd. In light of new evidence presented by the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, Judge Martinez began, her voice clear and authoritative. "This court hereby dismisses all charges against Isaiah Carter and fully exonerates him of any wrongdoing in relation to the alleged arson and murder charges." A cheer erupted from the gallery. Isaiah closed his eyes briefly, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "the court recognizes Ms. Lena Goodson's crucial role in exposing the extensive criminal enterprise operated by the Caldwell family. All retaliatory charges against her are dismissed with prejudice." More cheers filled the courtroom. Maria and Carlos hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. Rose clutched Mr. Johnson's hand, both of them beaming with pride. "The Caldwell assets, totaling approximately $330 million, are hereby frozen pending federal investigation," Judge Martinez announced. Initial findings indicate widespread fraud, money laundering, and labor law violations spanning 2 decades. Lena watched the scrolling news ticker on a courtroom monitor. Caldwell empire crumbles. Mansions seized. Businesses shuttered. Accounts frozen. Another headline flashed. "Bell Ridge corruption scandal widens. Mayor resigns. Police chief under investigation." The judge gestured to Lena. "Ms. Goodson, would you like to address the court?" Lena stood, smoothing her navy blue blazer. Her voice trembled slightly but grew stronger with each word. "3 days ago, I was forced to crawl on my hands and knees for the amusement of wealthy people who thought their money made them better than me, better than all of us." She gestured to the gathered workers. "But money doesn't make you better. Character does. Dignity does. And today proves that justice is stronger than wealth." Phones recorded her every word as she continued. "The Caldwells didn't just hurt me. They hurt hundreds of workers over decades. They stole wages, crushed dreams, and treated human beings like property. They corrupted our police, our politicians, and our courts." Isaiah nodded encouragingly as Lena's voice rose with passion. "But they forgot something important. They forgot that we have power when we stand together. They forgot that truth can't stay buried forever. They forgot that in America, no one is supposed to be above the law." Scattered applause broke out, quickly spreading through the courtroom. Judge Martinez allowed it, watching Lena with quiet approval. "This isn't just about punishing the Caldwells," Lena declared. "It's about building something better. It's about making sure no worker ever has to endure what we endured. It's about holding the powerful accountable." She turned to face the workers directly. "To everyone who found the courage to speak up, thank you. To everyone who kept fighting when it seemed hopeless, thank you. To Isaiah, who risked everything to help a stranger, thank you. Tears glistened in many eyes as Lena concluded. Today marks a new chapter for Bell Ridge. No more exploitation. No more corruption. No more treating people like they're invisible. From now on, we stand tall. We stand together. And we stand for justice. The courtroom erupted in a standing ovation. Judge Martinez didn't attempt to quiet it, letting the moment of triumph ring out. Reporters scribbled frantically, cameras whirred, and social media lit up with Lena's words. Walter Hines, sitting quietly in the back, nodded in satisfaction. His testimony had helped seal the Caldwell's fate, and his conscience felt lighter for it. As the applause finally died down, Judge Martinez spoke again. The court recognizes the tremendous courage shown by Ms. Goodson, Mr. Carter, and all the workers who came forward. Your actions have exposed deep-rooted corruption and set an example for others to follow. She shuffled her papers decisively. This court will oversee the establishment of a worker compensation fund using seized Caldwell assets. All affected employees will receive back pay and damages. More celebration erupted at this news. Mr. Johnson wiped tears from his weathered face, thinking of the retirement he could finally afford. Isaiah stood beside Lena as reporters called out questions. How does it feel to be vindicated? What's next for the workers? Will you pursue civil suits against the Caldwells? But Lena had eyes only for Isaiah. They embraced tightly, all the fear and tension of the past days melting away. They had risked everything for justice, and justice had prevailed. Thank you, Lena whispered against Isaiah's shoulder. I couldn't have done this without you. You did the hard part, Isaiah replied softly. You showed everyone what real courage looks like. They held each other as cameras flashed around them, capturing the moment of vindication. The Caldwell's reign of exploitation was over. A new day had dawned in Bell Ridge, built on truth, dignity, and justice for all. 1 month later, the autumn breeze rustled through the newly planted community garden where the Caldwell mansion once stood. Lena stood at a wooden podium, addressing a crowd of familiar faces beneath a banner reading, Bell Ridge Workers' Rights Center. I'm honored to announce my new role as Executive Director of Civil Justice now, Lena said, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd. This national foundation will help workers across America stand up against exploitation and abuse. Isaiah watched from the side, pride evident in his gentle smile. The past month had transformed Bell Ridge. Where corruption once ruled, new leadership emerged from the community itself. The police department underwent a complete overhaul, with oversight from state authorities. The mayor's office, now led by a former union organizer, prioritized worker protections and corporate accountability. The community garden symbolized the change. Workers who'd once served the Caldwells now grew food for local families. The mansion's gaudy fountains had been replaced by vegetable beds and fruit trees, tended by volunteers. But I'm not leaving Bell Ridge behind, Lena continued, drawing applause. This will be our headquarters. Every worker who stands up to injustice will find support here. Maria, now the garden's coordinator, beamed from the front row. Next to her sat Carlos, recently promoted to shift supervisor at his factory after years of being passed over. Rose, who'd testified about wage theft, now ran worker education programs. Mr. Johnson, finally receiving his stolen pension, taught financial literacy classes to young employees. After the announcement, Lena joined Isaiah near the herb garden he'd designed. Ready for our first speaking tour next week? She asked, admiring the neat rows of basil and thyme. As ready as I'll ever be, Isaiah replied, adjusting his glasses. 20 cities in 2 months. We'll reach thousands of workers. And lawyers, Lena added with a knowing smile. Don't forget you're teaching pro bono attorneys How to Fight Corporate Abuse. You're going back to law, just differently. Isaiah nodded, touching a fragrant rosemary plant. Sometimes good things come from bad situations, like this garden from that awful mansion. They walked together through the transformed grounds. The Workers' Center occupied the mansion's former garage, its walls now covered in colorful murals celebrating labor rights. Inside, volunteers staffed a legal clinic and job training program. Walter Hines, the former Caldwell CFO turned whistleblower, taught accounting classes there twice a week. His expertise helped workers understand corporate finances and spot fraud. "Best decision I ever made," he often said about coming forward. Lena's office overlooked the garden. She'd insisted on glass walls. Transparency was their new watchword. On her desk sat photos of the coalition members who'd risked everything to expose the truth. Next to them stood a small plaque. "Courage is contagious." "The foundation wants us to write a book," Isaiah mentioned as they entered her office. "Share our strategy with other communities fighting corruption." "As long as we tell everyone's story, not just mine," Lena replied, settling behind her desk. "It took all of us to bring down the Caldwells." Her computer showed dozens of unread emails, requests for help from workers nationwide. The Caldwell case had sparked hope everywhere. People realized they didn't have to accept abuse and exploitation. "Remember that first night in your garden?" Lena asked softly. "When you showed me the video and promised to help?" Isaiah leaned against the doorframe. "You were so scared but so determined. I knew then you'd win." "We won," Lena corrected. "And now we help others win too." A knock interrupted them. Maria entered carrying a cream-colored envelope. "This just came for you, Lena." Hand-delivered. Lena opened it carefully, unfolding a handwritten letter. Her eyes filled with tears as she read aloud, "Dear Lena, I worked for the Caldwells for 23 years. They took so much from me. Wages, dignity, hope. I was too afraid to speak up. But you showed us all what courage looks like. Thanks to you, my grandson will start college next year. The back pay and damages changed our lives. But more than money, you gave us back our pride. You proved that regular people can stand up to power and win. Every morning, I walk past the garden that replaced their mansion. I pick fresh vegetables for my family. My grandson learns about workers' rights in the same garage where the Caldwells once parked their luxury cars. You didn't just expose corruption. You helped build something beautiful in its place. You didn't just win justice. You showed us how to keep fighting for it. Simply put, you saved us all. With eternal gratitude, Eleanor Martinez." Lena carefully folded the letter, touching it to her heart. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but her smile radiated joy and peace. The fear and pain of that horrible night seemed distant now, transformed into purpose and strength. "Frame it," Isaiah suggested gently, "and take it with us." Lena nodded. "To remind every worker we meet that change is possible, that justice is worth fighting for, that courage really is contagious." I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.